Hi, it's Katina with Atomic Nuclei Tin Jewelry, and today I'm going to talk about cold connections. Okay, so cold connections are when we fasten pieces of metal together using rivets or eyelets versus a hot connection which uses heat and solder. Okay, so I don't believe that tin has the correct properties for a hot connection. So if you are wanting to put your pieces of tin together permanently, you'll want to use cold connections. Okay, and so once you figure out where you want your holes in your metal for whatever design you're creating, and you want to punch them, if you're wanting to layer the pieces and have them symmetrical, you're going to want this tool. Okay, this is a center finder. You can find them everywhere on the internet. I think I got mine from eBay or something like that. So anyway, this will find the center of virtually any shape. So it comes with instructions and tells you, which shapes to use for which side, because you could use both sides. And so I just draw an X with the permanent marker on the back of whatever piece of tin I'm trying to find the center of. And then once I poke my hole in the tin, if I need to take that permanent marker off, I just use some 91% rubbing alcohol, and then that'll take the marker off. But this is a great tool, especially if you're wanting to be symmetrical in your designs, and especially for like earrings. If you're trying to make two layered earrings the same and you want to have all your pieces line up, this is a great tool to use. Okay, so you've got your hole marked on your tin, and the next thing you want to do is poke your hole. So there are lots of different hole punches out there. These are my favorite. These are a Swanstrom tool, and it's a hole punch that punches a 1.25 millimeter hole. And I'll hold this up. This is the hole size that it'll punch, these two. Okay. Now, although I love these, a 1.25 millimeter hole punch is going to be too small for any type of rivet that you're wanting to use. Okay. Now, I haven't gotten any more of these Swanstroms, but they make them in all types of sizes. This is just the smallest one. I highly recommend it. It makes a very clean hole. Okay, so the next one I have are these. Okay, and this is a Hobby Lobby hole punch, and I believe whatever Hobby Lobby's house brand is what this is. And I think it's either a 1.5 or a 1.75 millimeter hole, and it punches holes like these here, these top ones. And this size hole will do if you're wanting to do a basic rivet. And I'll show you a couple of options on those rivets in just a second. But if you're wanting to do a compression rivet or an eyelet, this is going to be too small. Okay, so then I have these. These are by Bead Buddy, and this is a 2 millimeter hole punch. And this will be okay if you are wanting to put compression rivets in. These two holes on this side is with the 2 millimeter hole punch, and it's just a little bit bigger. Okay, now if you're wanting to put in eyelets or a larger rivet, and you'll start to be able to see when you see the rivet and the size of your regular hole punch, if it's going to work or not. You'll start to have an eye for that. But then there's this guy, and he is a Euro tool. And this is great. This will do all kinds of sizes, but the smallest size is like a 3 millimeter. And so that's like this guy. And so if you're wanting to put some eyelets in, I would say that this 3 millimeter, or if you could find, like I know Swanstrom makes a 2.5 millimeter hole punch. If you're wanting to do eyelets, you need something that size. Okay. All right. So then you're like, okay, so I've got my centers marked on my pieces and my holes punched, and now I'm ready to put my pieces together. Okay, so you have different options. There are compression rivets, And these are two parts. Let me show you. Okay, it's two parts. You have a bottom, and then you have a top, okay? And they snap together. So I will put that on there, and then you would put this top over it and snap it down. And then that's ready to rivet together. You hear them snap, and then they'll be ready to rivet together. And then to put those together, you could use a, I use this Tierra cast. Okay, and then this is a Tierra cast. It's actually an eyelet setter, but it works for these compression rivets too, because if you see on the bottom, there's a, you can see there's a divot there, and then on the eyelet setter, there's a raised part. So if you put that right on top, then that will help hold that in place, okay? You can also turn it over, and then this is a flat side, and then if you wanted to just put your rivet on that side too, you could do it like that. Just hold it down, okay? Now, to put a compression rivet in, that has a domed top. Do you see how that's a domed top? Okay, so you'll need a special tool, and you'll need this Tierra cast 4mm rivet setter. Now, let me back up just a minute, because when you are buying compression rivets, and I order mine off of, I call them Lima beads. I think it's officially Lima beads, but anyway, tomato, whatever. So anyway, at Lima Beads, they have these compression rivets, and the ones that I buy are made by Tierra Cast, and they come in two sizes, 4mm and 6mm. And something that you're going to want to keep in mind is when you're buying compression rivets or even eyelets, you want a small size, because your tin is pretty thin, and they make these to be used in thicker materials like leather as well. So I buy the 4mm rivets, okay? And then you'll want this rivet setter, okay? And if you look at it, this side is dipped, okay? It's a little bit domed, because that part is gonna fit right here on top of your rivet. And then you wanna hold it. I'm not gonna hammer, but because it's way too loud, but you can get my idea. So you wanna just take a regular hammer, and I use a ball peen hammer. Let me scoot this back a little bit. And then you would just want to hammer this down. And then to make sure I get everything symmetrical, I'll hammer a little bit, and then I'll turn it, and then hammer it, and then just keep turning that around so it gets real flat. That's just me. You can find out the technique that works best for you. Okay, so then we can move on to eyelets. Okay, so eyelets have a hole in them. Can you see that? Okay, and so to set an eyelet, you'll definitely want this other side. And then you'll want this side, this finished side of your eyelet, to be on the outside of your tin. So you'd pop that in there like that, okay? And then where this has a divoted piece, you'll want to set that eyelet in there, because that's going to help set it, okay? And then this thing came with an eyelet setter, and if you can see there, that's got a raised portion that's going to sit in the middle of this. You can also buy extra small rivet setter. I don't know what I did with mine. But anyway, you can get an extra small rivet setter too. And you would just set that on top. And then I use just a ball peen hammer. And you would hammer that into place. And again, I hold it real firm and vertical and take my time and hammer a little bit and turn it and look at it and hammer and turn it and hammer. Okay. So you've got that. All right, now there are also fancy rivets that you can get. And like this is a little star and a heart. And here's a little, like an inside of a flower. So you can get those as well. Now, they have a pretty long tail on them that you'd need to clip down, okay? And so, I'm gonna move this out of the way. So if you're gonna use something like that, a fancy rivet, then you'll want to get out your bench block. Now I usually have mine sitting on like a bean bag to reduce noise, but my camera angle is really small here, so we'll use this. Okay, so then you can take one of your fancy rivets and put it in your hole. Let me see here, there, the 2.5 millimeter hole, or 2. I think it was a 2. Sorry. And then I put some tape, some type of tape on this side so this doesn't get marred. And then you'll want to have something to measure your hole with. And I have taken a credit card. Well, this one was a coffee card. And then I just punched a hole in it with whatever size hole punch that I know I'm gonna use. Okay, so we'll just punch another hole in this guy. All right, so, and I didn't come up with this on my own. Some other person had this credit card idea. I think it was the Frugal Crafter. Anyway, I thought, well, that's pretty genius. Okay, so this will give you, because I think you're supposed to have, I don't know how much room, or just a smidgen of room. But anyway, this card, the plastic credit cards, they create the perfect length. So then you would take your flush cutters, and these flush cutters that I have here, they are dedicated to rivets. Like, I don't use these for any of my nice wire or anything else. These are only to cut rivets. And so you would just hold these flush, you would cut that clean right there, and then do your rivet, okay? I'm not gonna use this one, but I'll cut a different one. Okay, so then you can buy rivets. These are from Vintage, and they're just a basic rivet with a flat head. And you, again, would just put your piece on there. And on these, it would be a designer's choice whether you wanted this in the front or the back on whatever look you're going for. So you could like rivet the front, or you could turn it over and rivet the back. It really, I mean, it's really up to you. But anyway, you can buy these Vintage ones most places, and there are probably other jewelry manufacturers that make rivets too. It's just that these Vintage ones are the ones that I had. Okay, so, but folks, when I am doing a basic rivet, I don't use a lot of these things unless the design calls for it. If I'm just wanting to put some metal together, I will just go to the hardware store, and I will go to the nail section and purchase what are called brads. Okay, and brads are these little nails. And again, I didn't get that idea from myself. I saw it someplace, but I don't know where I saw that they use brads. Okay, so when you're looking for brads, what you want to look for is a real flat head like the vintage rivets do. You want them to be a very symmetrical head and very flat, because you're going to, however your design is going to be, you either want this as the front or the back, but you want it to be flush nonetheless. Okay, so these are two examples of a pretty good rivet. They're brads. Now, not all brads are created equal, so when you go, you'll really want to check them out, because you could end up with some like this. Now, this one here, if you look, it doesn't sit flat, and it's not, it's kind of like a shoe. It doesn't, I can't even hardly get this to come into focus. It's kind of dark. But it doesn't, it's not going to give you a real flat finish. Okay, it's just not going to give you a good rivet. All right, and then if you look at this guy, he looks pretty good, but he's kind of got a domed top. Okay, and you really want that to be as flat as possible. Okay, so on these two purchases, I lived and I learned. Got them home and was like, oh, that's not gonna work. All right, so these are the types of just basic items that I use for rivets on the daily, unless I'm doing something fancy. Okay, so again, when I'm wanting to make a rivet, I will put this guy in here like that, and then I will take my card with the appropriate size. Let's see here, appropriate size, and then I'd hold that flat, okay, and then I will cut, hold on to this or it'll go flying. Okay, so I cut that off. Now, that is gonna leave kind of a jagged edge, and I want that to be as flat as possible. So what I do is I take this and I will go over it. I'm not gonna actually file it because it'll be way too loud, but I will just file this down real fine all the way around until I can eyeball it and it looks like it's pretty flat. It doesn't have to be perfect, but pretty flat. And then, now you can take a riveting hammer, but when I started doing cold connections, I didn't own a riveting hammer. Instead, I had this guy that I bought for 50 cents at a yard sale. And so this is what I learned to rivet on. Now you can have a riveting hammer, or you can probably find another video on the internet that really goes over this from a more technical aspect. I just kind of get the job done, and this is how I do it, and I'm pretty successful with it. Okay, so anyway, once I have that sanded flat, I would take this hammer and I would just start hammering it, and then I would turn this guy here and kind of go in a little circular motion until it was all hammered flat. And then I'd feel it with my finger to make sure that it was, you know, as flush as I could get it to be. Okay, so I'm going to set this aside, and then I'll show you some of the items that I have made that have used rivets. Okay, so here's these earrings. Okay, now they have the compression rivets, and so what I did on these is I punched my hole in the circle first before I made it into a little cup shape. Okay, so that's pretty vital, because if you don't get your circle in before, if you do the dome shape first or the cup shape first, and then you try to put your punch your center, it's just not going to work and you're going to distort your form. So if your design calls for centers in a cup shape, then you'll want to poke your hole first. But anyway, I lined them up and then I used the compression rivets. And see, the compression rivets, once they needed to use this type of tool, you know, that helped keep the shape of the cup all the way around. Okay, so I've done those, and then here's a pair that was using the compression rivets. They make a really nice look. Okay, and so these again are a cupped design, but they only used the brads. So, and you can feel them, and that's real smooth in there. But I used I used this to go on top. This is that eyelet setter. So I used the eyelet setter because I already had my pieces cupped, and I put that, once I filed that flat, I put the eyelet setter on top of there and hammered, so the cup shape could keep its shape. And then there are these are just a flat rivet, and again I just used the brads. So, but then you can use, here's one that I used. It has an eyelet at the top, okay, and then just to fasten these on, it's just the regular brads nails. And then this guy, my necklace has got tangled. This guy here, this one just used a regular brad at the top, but then I used one of those fancy rivets for the center of the flower. And then there's this one. And then this one just has the eyelets at the top. And then for my design wise, I just decide to put them on the bottom. I left them off. And then this one just has brads at the top and then on the 3 points. But yeah, these were actual vintage ones. And then you look on the back, and you just have to make sure that it's real smooth on the back. All right, so this was my little demonstration on cold connections. If you have any feedback for me, that's great. You can leave it in the comments section. If you do something that I don't do that's better, let me know. I'm always wanting to learn better techniques on how to make my jewelry. But if I gave you any insights then on how to make some cold connections of your own, that's great too. Y'all have a good day, and maybe I'll make another video sometime. Bye.